Hello there, my name is Sarah, and I'm reading from Secret City by Jan Andrew Henderson. This is the second part of chapter 11, The Battle. There was nothing else for it. With a blood-curdling Highland yell, Duncan charged at the enemy. The three remaining trolls were taken completely by surprise. Turning in panic, they tried to scramble over each other, spitting and clawing in an attempt to get away, but their bodies were just too large in such confined spaces to manoeuvre properly. Duncan swung the shield and caught the nearest creature square in the back. A huge gount of black liquid arched from between its shoulders as it fell, writhing and screaming. His second swing took the upraised arm from the second monster. Before they thundered, squealing in terror, back the way they came. Duncan shouldered the shield, spun on his heel, and headed in the direction that Shadow Jack had gone. Peasel was standing shivering, knee-deep in water at the bottom of the well shaft when Duncan finally reached the chamber. Shadow Jack's at the top, melting the horseshoes. Back down again, he coughed weakly. Seems a shame, after all the effort we put into making them in the first place. Then get up there after him. These beasts will be here any second. I can't hold them off, not even with a silver shield. The pickpocket shook his head. I haven't got the strength to climb, Duncan. Besides, I thought you might need this. He thrust his arm into the black water and pulled out a beautiful silver sword. Where in the name of the wee man did you get that? Duncan gasped. I hid it behind a rock a couple of weeks ago when I first found this place. He held out the weapon out of pure greed, you know. Duncan took the sword reverently. Peasel, you never ceased to amaze me. The bucket and rope came tumbling down the funnel and splashed into the water, narrowly missing the pickpockets. The horseshoes are melting away just fine, Shadow Jack's voice echoed down. Grab hold of the rope, lad. Take the shield with you. Duncan thrust it out. Melt it down too. Melt everything that's silver. Then throw the rope back for me. Too weak to protest, Peasel hoisted the shield onto his back and sat on the bucket. Haul away, Shadow Jack, Duncan shouted. The boy, bucket and shield, rose unhesitatingly into the air and disappeared into the chamber roof. Duncan could hear Shadow Jack grunting as he pulled. The Highlander turned, sword in hand, in time to see the first troll slither into the chamber. Then another entered, and another, until 12 of the monstrosities were bunched together in the vault. One gestured violently, and the creatures began to fan out, gurgling and slobbering and inching in both directions along the chamber wall, until eventually they ringed the Highlander. The boy circled on the spot, holding out the sword, but he knew he was lost. He could kill 5, 6, maybe even more, but in the end, they'd just overcome him by sheer weight of numbers. The bucket landed in the water again, and the trolls recoiled in surprise. That was the split second that Duncan needed. He rammed his foot into it and grasped the rope with one hand. Pull, Shadow Jack, pull, or my life is over. Shadow Jack gave a tremendous roar of exertion from above, and Duncan shot into the air. Seeing their victim about to escape, the trolls rushed forward en masse. The largest leaping into the air towards them, talons outstretched, Duncan swung the sword in a vicious arc, and the creature's clawing arm was sliced from its body. The monster fell back into the water with a scream. You beasties are not going to have any arms left by the time we're finished with you, the Highlander shouted triumphantly as he vanished up the funnel. Peasel was waiting at the top to help Duncan clamber out of the well and into Shadow Jack's vaults. The blacksmith had simply dumped the huge smelting dish onto the red-hot coals of his forge and then thrown in all the horseshoes. And the Highlander could see the shield dissolving into the mass of bubbling molten metal that almost reached the top of the huge container. Shadow Jack gave a whistle when he saw the sword. Whew, that is a piece and a half, and no mistake. Can't believe we missed that the first time, he said, suspiciously eyeing the weapon. You want that melted down as well? I didn't think we'd better, said Duncan, holding up the sword in awe. I'm thinking this might be the legendary Excalibur itself. Aye, right. I'll wager on it. Could we just get back to your plan, Duncan, whatever it is? Peasel pointed down the well. These things are climbing. Tip out the molten silver, the Highlander pointed to the dish. Tip it down the well. What? Shadow Jack held up his hands in horror. That's our fortune. And how will you spend it? From the grave? Shadow Jack groaned in disbelief, then spun and grabbed a stout cudgel leaning against the wall of the vault. He rammed it into the glowing coals below the dish. Help me then, lads, quick now before this goes up in flames, he shouted, putting all of his considerable weight on the staff. The boys ran to his side and all three of them pushed down as hard as they could. The container creaked slowly and lifted a few inches above the forge. Once more, boys, with all your might, push! The trio wrenched down onto the staff again, grunting in pain and effort and the desperation of people whose lives hung on a thread. The huge dish rose slowly out of the forge and toppled onto its side, and 1/2 ton of molten silver surged out the container and flowed into the well. There was an unholy scream from inside the funnel as the liquid metal engulfed the climbing trolls and swept them back into the depths. The creatures that filled the chamber below tried to escape as the molten silver hit the river at the bottom, but it was too late. A giant cloud of steam, saturated with droplets of silver, filled the vault instantly and shot along the tunnels at the bottom, enveloping the fleeing trolls. In a matter of seconds, the Gorodon Wrath, who had survived for 1.5 millennium, were blasted out of existence. Shadow Jack, Peasel and Duncan lay on their backs of the vaults, coughing and gasping and laughing with joy. We did it! Shadow Jack thumped Duncan on the chest. Poor as church mice again, aye, but alive all the same. Not exactly. Duncan held Excalibur above his head. This thing has a jewel set in it the size of a hen's egg. Well, poor or not poor, let us get out of here. Shadow Jack sat up. I, for one, don't intend to spend one more day locked away from daylight. Not as long as I live. He stretched out his arm, helped Peasel to his feet, and then reached back at Duncan. As he did so, a mournful howl rose from the depth of the well, a sound more powerful, more nerve-jangling, and strangely enough, more human than any the other trolls had made. Shadow Jack froze in mid-pool. Oh my God, Peasel clutched the blacksmith's arm. What was that? Mordred, that would be my guess, said Duncan flatly. Their war chief, clever wee beastie. He must have stayed well back while the rest attacked. How do you know all this stuff? Never mind. What'll we do? Well, whatever it is, we better do it quick. Shadow Jack hauled Duncan onto his feet with a mighty tug. The trio could hear hoofbeats growing louder, rattling down the tunnel towards the bottom of the well. Mordred was coming. The dish. The pickpocket pointed to the container lying on its side. There's enough silver left, crusted on the bottom of the dish, inside and out, to stop whatever's down there ever getting past it. It looks like it might fit in the well. Only one way to find out. Shadow Jack flexed his mighty arms, picked up the container with a muscle-popping heave, and slammed it into the hole in the vault floor. It slid in almost to its brim, but the lip prevented it from sinking any further. Shadow Jack stepped back, waving his arms in the air. Oh, still a bit hot that, he said through gritted teeth. Mordred knew it too. There was another venomous roar from the bottom of the well, then a rat-a-tat-tat-tat of Mordred's hooves thundering back down the passage as the monster searched in vain for another way out of the lower level. Duncan pushed at the smelting container with his foot, but it didn't budge. You think that there's any way that thing can get out? I doubt it, Peasel said. I've been down there, remember? Well, what if someone removes this dish? This vault already has a bad enough reputation. After all that unearthly screaming and drumming, can't see anyone ever coming near it again. Just in case, we can block up the stairs that lead down here, Shadow Jack said. Wait a minute, Peasel went to the back of the vault and fetched his journal. Whatever that thing trapped down there might be, it has lived for a long, long time, and it isn't likely to die any time soon. He opened the book and he began to write. Gather as many loose rocks as you can to hide the well. I'm going to finish my diary and I'm going to leave it here as a warning in case anyone ever finds this place again. I think we should hide the sword for some reason. Duncan looked admiringly at the weapon. We just prize the jewel out of the hilt first. It's big enough to make us all wealthy. Shadowjack and Duncan silently scoured the vault and the adjoining corridors for suitable debris while Peasel completed his journal. They wrapped the book in one of Shadowjack's smelting gloves, left it in the dish, pulled a plank over the top and covered it with rocks. I told you someday that you would write something important. Duncan patted Peasel on the shoulder. The pickpocket didn't smile. I pity the poor soul that finds this, he said. Then, with Excalibur wrapped in an old oilskin cloth, Peasel, Duncan and Shadowjack Henry walked out of the underground city and into the sun. Whew. Right, guys. Tomorrow night I'll be reading chapter 12, The Body Snatcher. But I want you to go and clean your teeth, do all this hand washing. It is so important. Then into bed, snuggle down, give yourself a great big huge cuddle because you deserve it. Hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. Night night.